You know, the other day I was just reading this article, right, about a school in California that started this peer counseling program, to try to combat bullying.
Okay.
And it really got me thinking about this thing that happened back when I was in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
We had this one kid, Mark, and I mean, this kid was always picking on this smaller boy in our class, just relentless.
Yeah.
But then one day, our teacher, she had this, I don't know, like kind of crazy idea to pair him up, Mark, the bully, with the student he was always targeting. And get this, for a science project.
Wow, really? What happened?
Yeah, yeah. At first I was like totally skeptical. I was like, wait, are we seriously like rewarding this kid for being a jerk?
Yeah, you would think so, right.
But here's the thing, and this really surprised me, but something changed. I mean, it wasn't like this overnight magical transformation, but just working together, even if it was kind of grudgingly at first, it seemed to, I don't know, break down some of those walls between them.
Right.
Mark actually started to see this other student as, like an actual person, not just some easy target.
I see, yeah.
So, yeah, it got me thinking a lot about how powerful, understanding and even empathy can be when we're trying to deal with this whole bullying thing.
Absolutely. It's so easy, to just label these kids who bully as like, just bad kids. But the reality, it's it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Their behavior, I mean, yeah, it's not okay, but a lot of times it comes from this whole mix of different things going on.
So, like, what are some of those underlying reasons? Like, why do some kids become bullies in the first place? What's going on there?
Right. So it's almost never just one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, there's a lot of research that points to five main things that tend to be going on often, kind of all tangled up together.
Okay.
So first, there's the family environment. Think of it this way. If you've got a kid, right,
Mm-hmm.
growing up in a home where there's like domestic violence
Mhm.
or they're dealing with emotional neglect,
Right.
they might learn that being aggressive, that's just how you deal with stress or how you get what you want.
Right. It's like the only way they know.
Sadly, yeah, they kind of end up mirroring those harmful patterns they see at home.
Oh, wow.
It's like a textbook example of what psychologists call social learning theory.
So it's like they've been given like these messed up instructions for how to like act around other people, and well, they're just following the only script they've got.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you've got to think about the individual kid's psychology too, right?
All right.
Some kids, they could be dealing with their own stuff internally.
Hmm.
Like maybe they've got really low self-esteem, or maybe they have ADHD that hasn't been diagnosed, or even like social anxiety.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And all those internal struggles, sometimes they can come out as aggression.
They kind of lash out.
Bullying, it becomes like a defense mechanism almost,
Yeah.
a way to hide their own insecurities.
Instead of seeing them as like bad to the core, it might be more accurate to see them as like struggling, maybe even hurting,
Exactly.
and trying to, I don't know, cover it up somehow.
Yeah, and think about that internal struggle we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine it playing out in a school where nobody's really doing much to stop bullying. And that brings us to the third piece of this whole puzzle, the school environment itself.
Okay.
So if a school doesn't have clear rules about bullying, rules with real consequences, or if it even seems like they're kind of turning a blind eye to it, well, that just creates this breeding ground for bullying to get worse.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, if a tree falls in the forest.
Exactly. If nobody sees it,
Yeah.
did it even happen?
Well, I mean, in this case, even if people see it, right, if they just ignore it or act like it's no big deal, it sends a message, right? Like it's almost like giving it a silent thumbs up.
Right. And then we can't forget about the influence of other kids, their peers,
Hmm?
especially during those middle school and high school years.
Yeah, that's a tough time.
Because that's when kids are like desperate to fit in.
Yeah.
They just want to be accepted, to feel like they belong, even if it means going along with stuff that they know isn't right.
Totally.
Imagine like a situation where bullying is actually seen as cool or, I don't know, like a way to become popular or something.
Yeah.
Tragically, some kids are going to get sucked into that whole dynamic because they just want so badly to fit in.
It's that whole Mean Girls thing, huh? Like peer pressure is no joke, especially at that age.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
And it's not just about fitting in, right? There's also the influence of, well, everything they see on screens. All that violence in movies and TV shows and video games.
Yeah, true.
It's easy to think, oh, it's just entertainment, but all those images, they kind of seep in,
Yeah, right.
Research actually suggests that when kids see that stuff over and over, it can make them less sensitive to aggression in real life. like it's no big deal.
It's like it normalizes it, right? Like it becomes just a normal part of life instead of something harmful.
Exactly. Think about it. A kid sees conflict after conflict resolved with a punch or a weapon.
Yeah.
And the more they see it, the more it can really warp how they understand what's okay in their own lives, how they're supposed to treat people.
It's kind of scary when you think about it like that.
Yeah,
So we've got all these pieces of the puzzle, right? A kid's family, what's going on in their own head, the school environment, how their friends act, even what they're watching on TV.
right. It's all connected.
And it all comes together to shape how they see the world, I guess.
Exactly. And keeping all of that in mind is so important when we shift gears from like why a kid might bully someone to how it impacts the victim. Because, I mean, getting bullied, it leaves scars.
It's not something you just shrug off, that's for sure.
No, not at all. And it's easy to just focus on the obvious stuff, like the name calling, the shoving, being left out. But the damage that really sticks with a kid, the stuff that festers,
It goes way deeply.
it really does. It's like a ripple effect that touches every single part of their life.
It's a good way to put it. So, like, what are some of those less obvious but more long-term effects, especially psychologically?
Well, picture this, right? You've got a kid, maybe they're already a little unsure of themselves, and then every day they're told they're worthless or ugly or stupid.
Awful.
Over time, those messages, they really start to sink in, They start to believe that stuff about themselves, and it just eats away at their self-esteem. They start doubting everything about themselves.
That's heartbreaking, especially at that age.
It really is, because that's when they should be, figuring out who they are, building themselves up. Instead, it's like they're being bombarded with all this negativity.
It's like someone's stealing their confidence right out from under them, that belief in themselves that's so important.
You got it. And as their self-worth takes a hit, often the next thing you see is they start having trouble with, well, relationships.
Like making friends, keeping friends.
Exactly. They might just withdraw completely, terrified of being rejected or made fun of again. It's like they're afraid to let anyone in.
Because they've been burned before.
Exactly. And that can be really tough,
Yeah.
They want connection, they crave that sense of belonging, but they push everyone away because they're so scared of being hurt again.
It's a vicious cycle.
For sure. And all of this, it bleeds into their schoolwork too.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Try concentrating on, like, algebra when your brain is stuck on that encounter with the bully from earlier, or dreading the next one.
Yeah, that's not going to end well.
No. Their grades might drop, but it's not because they're not smart. It's because they're carrying so much emotional baggage, they can't focus, School's supposed to be a safe place, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A place where they feel supported, encouraged, where they can just learn and grow. But for these kids, it becomes another source of stress, another battleground they have to face every day.
Yeah, that's rough.
And don't even get me started on the physical toll all that stress takes. Kids who are bullied, they often end up with all sorts of problems. Trouble sleeping, stomach aches, headaches. It's like their bodies are mirroring what's going on inside.
It's like their body saying, hey, something's wrong, pay attention.
Exactly. And tragically, sometimes the consequences they deal with, they don't end when they leave school. A study a few years back from Harvard, it found that adults who were bullied as kids,
What, like years later?
years later, they were way more likely to have PTSD, depression, anxiety disorders,
Wow.
compared to people who weren't bullied. So, just goes to show you how serious this is. Bullying leaves a mark. It's not something kids just get over.
It's clear that bullying is a really big deal. But now I'm wondering, what can we actually do about it? How do we create schools where every kid feels safe and respected?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? The good news is that more and more people are starting to take this seriously, and they're coming up with solutions based on actual research, not just like guesswork.
Okay, that's good to hear. But where do we even begin? I mean, this isn't exactly a simple problem.
You're right. There's no quick fix. It's not like one magic solution is going to fix everything. But a lot of experts agree that a big part of the answer is education. And I don't mean those like once-a-year assemblies where they talk at the kids about being nice.
Right, those don't usually do much.
Exactly. We need to weave these messages about respect and empathy into the everyday life of the school.
So make it part of the culture.
Yes. I'm talking about having workshops where they teach kids how to understand each other's feelings and work through conflicts. And imagine if students got to actually practice these skills, through role-playing, where they switch places and see things from the other person's perspective.
That's a really interesting idea.
Right. And we should also encourage kids to be part of the solution, not just the problem. Things like having older kids mentor younger kids or letting students lead anti-bullying campaigns. Even just having a special bench where a kid can go if they're feeling lonely.
Like a buddy bench.
Yeah, exactly. Little things like that can make a big difference in creating a supportive and inclusive environment.
So it's about making kindness cool.
Absolutely. And along with creating that positive vibe, we also need clear rules about bullying. And those rules need to have real consequences, you know? And everyone needs to be on board. Teachers, staff, administrators, parents.
Everyone has to be singing from the same hymn sheet.
Exactly. So that kids know, without a doubt, that bullying won't be tolerated.
It creates that safety net, like they know someone has their back,
Exactly. And speaking of having someone's back, let's talk about bystanders. Because those kids who see bullying happening, they can often make a huge difference.
It's that whole thing, right, about how evil wins when good people stay silent.
Exactly. But knowing you should do something and actually doing it are two different things. So what can a bystander actually do?
Yeah, what does that look like in real life?
Well, it can be as simple as telling the bully to stop, as long as they feel safe doing so, or telling a teacher or another adult they trust.
And sometimes the bravest thing is just being there for the victim, showing them that they're not alone.
You're absolutely right. Just letting someone know you care can make a huge difference.
So we talked about what schools can do and what bystanders can do. What about the kids who are actually being bullied?
Right. Well, the most important thing is that they're safe. Avoiding a fight and getting out of a dangerous situation should always come first.
It's okay to walk away.
Absolutely. But they shouldn't suffer in silence. They need to tell someone they trust. A parent, teacher, counselor. Anyone who can be there for them and help them through it.
Because no one deserves to go through that alone.
You're so right. Now, there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to talk about, and that's the bully.
Okay.
It's easy to just say they're a bad kid and be done with it.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, a lot of times there's more to the story, right?
Right. Like maybe they're dealing with stuff at home or something.
Yeah. So instead of just punishing them after they do something wrong, we should try to help them deal with those underlying issues. Offer counseling, teach them social skills.
Get to the root of the problem.
Exactly. Some schools are even trying something called restorative justice. It's about focusing on repairing the harm that was done and giving the bully a chance to take responsibility for what they did.
It's about realizing that everyone makes mistakes, and sometimes people just need help getting back on track.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we need to create schools where kindness and empathy are just not normal, where those are the values that are celebrated.
Instead of being afraid to speak up, kids should feel safe and supported.
Absolutely. It's about changing the whole culture so that every single student feels valued and respected.
This deep dive has been, well, a real deep dive, but it's given me a lot to think about.
I do too.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that this isn't just a school's problem to fix. It's on all of us. Every single one of us can play a role in stopping bullying, whether we're students, parents, teachers, or just members of the community.
Yeah.
We can all make a difference.